Okay, here are the details of photosynthesis. I'm going to try not to make this last too long, but there's a lot of information here. And then in class, I want to go through the details that you really need to know. Try and make some sense of this all. So we learned already that the light-dependent reactions involve sunlight, and that they occur in the thylakoids of the chloroplasts. Inside those thylakoids are clusters of chlorophyll and proteins that are called photosystems. These photosystems absorb sunlight and generate the high-energy electrons that are passed to electron carriers in the thylakoid membrane. In photosystem 2, light energy is absorbed and the electrons go to a higher energy level, and then they are passed on to what's called the electron transport chain. It's a series of electron carriers that shuttle high energy electrons and make ATP. The thylakoid membrane gives new electrons to chlorophyll from water molecules. So this is where water goes in. Enzymes on the inner surface of the thylakoid break up the water molecules into 2 electrons, 2 hydrogen ions, and 1 oxygen atom. So this is where water goes in and oxygen comes out. The oxygen is released into the air, and the hydrogen ions are released inside the thylakoid. Energy from those electrons is used to pump hydrogen ions into the thylakoid space. And then those electrons pass to photosystem 1. So we actually start with photosystem 2 and move to photosystem 1. These electrons have lost a little bit of energy when they enter photosystem 1. So photosystem 1 also gathers light to re-energize the electrons. There's another electron transport chain, and then NADP molecules pick up the high energy electrons and hydrogen ions and become NADPH. The hydrogen ions are accumulating. The space becomes negatively charged because all the hydrogen ions are moving into the thylakoid. This difference in charge and hydrogen ion concentration provides the energy to make ATP. So now we've made NADPH that goes to the light-independent reactions, and we've made ATP that goes to the light-independent reactions. The enzyme that makes ATP is called ATP synthase. This is what is used when the hydrogen ions, or in order to let the hydrogen ions pass through the thylakoid membrane, and that movement makes ATP. The hydrogen ions pass through the enzyme and force it to rotate, and as it rotates like a turbine, ATP synthase binds ADP and a phosphate group together to make ATP. This process is called chemiosmosis. And the process that's happening there is light-dependent electron transport is producing NADPH and ATP. These provide the energy to drive the light-independent reactions. So again, we have water in light-dependent reactions. We have water going in, oxygen coming out, and ATP and NADPH coming out as well. ATP and NADPH provide energy needed to build carbohydrates or sugars from carbon dioxide. So now we move to the light-independent reactions. This is also called the Calvin cycle. I always remember that it's called the Calvin cycle. It begins with a C and it takes place in the chloroplast. Calvin cycle takes place in the chloroplasts. So again, plants are using the energy from ATP and NADPH to build glucose. This is where carbon dioxide goes in to the process of photosynthesis. It comes from the atmosphere. Again, we're in the stroma of the chloroplast, the space. And we have a cycle going on here. I'm going to move through the cycle pretty quickly because it's not information that you need to memorize. For every 6 carbon dioxide molecules that enter the cycle, we get 12 3-carbon compounds. Other enzymes convert the 3-carbon compounds to higher energy forms, using energy, like we said, from ATP and NADPH. Mid-cycle at the bottom, 2 of the 12 3-carbon molecules are removed from the cycle, and these become the building blocks that the plant cell uses to produce sugars, lipids, amino acids, and other compounds. The remaining 10 3-carbon molecules are converted back, so they're recycled, into 6 5-carbon molecules that combine with 6 new carbon dioxide molecules to begin the next cycle. So Calvin cycle, same thing as light-independent reactions. Use 6 molecules of carbon dioxide to produce 1 molecule of glucose. The energy that drives these reactions is supplied from the light-dependent reaction in the form of NADPH and ATP. Then the plants use those sugars produced by the Calvin cycle to meet their energy needs and build macromolecules needed for growth and development. When other organisms eat plants, they can use that energy that's stored in these compounds. So we have these 2 sets of reactions that are working together. The light-dependent reactions track the energy of sunlight and produce usable energy for the chloroplast. The light-independent reactions use that energy to produce glucose. In the process, we have animals, including us, get food in an atmosphere filled with oxygen. Photosynthesis is ideal between 0 and 35 degrees Celsius. These enzymes function best at that temperature range. Temperatures above or below can affect those enzymes, denature them, make them unable to be used, and that can slow down the rate of photosynthesis or stop it entirely. There's a direct relationship between light intensity and rate of photosynthesis, but it levels off. After the light intensity reaches a certain level, there's a maximum, which you can see here. Have sun plants and shade plants. Shortage of water can be a problem because we need water, or plants need water in order to do photosynthesis. Water loss can also damage plant tissues. Plants that live in desert conditions have waxy coatings on their leaves to help reduce water loss. They can also have biochemical adaptations that make photosynthesis more efficient in the dryness. Most plants under bright hot conditions close the small openings in their leaves that normally let carbon dioxide in. This causes carbon dioxide to fall to very low levels, which can slow down or even stop photosynthesis. C4 and CAM plants have biochemical adaptations that minimize water loss while still allowing photosynthesis to take place in really bright conditions. C4 plants have a chemical pathway that allows them to capture even very low levels of carbon dioxide and pass it to the Calvin cycle. It's called C4 because the first compound contains 4 carbon atoms. The C4 pathway requires extra energy, so more ATP in order to function. C4 organisms include crop plants, corn, sugarcane, and sorghum. Cacti and succulents that do photosynthesis in really dry conditions put carbon dioxide into organic acids during photosynthesis in a process called crassulation acid metabolism, or CAM. CAM plants emit air into their leaves only at night, and carbon dioxide is combined with existing molecules that traps the carbon within the leaves. When the leaves are tightly sealed during the day to prevent water loss, then these compounds release the carbon dioxide into the system of the plant and enable carbohydrate production. CAM plants are pineapple trees, desert cacti, and what we call ice plants.